In all my whatever career, I've said that social change cannot happen until somebody's willing to take a risk. And I believe that. And I believe it's going to get scarier and scarier to take a risk.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Best People podcast. Unfortunately for us, Best People doesn't begin to capture this week's guest because she's more than that. She's an icon known the world over. Her lyrics are literally the words that have accompanied everything we associate in our country's history with justice and change and all things good. But she's part of our present moment as well. This week's guest on the Best People podcast is Joan Baez. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love everything you've done, but I especially love everything you've said about this moment. And one thing that I changed immediately is I am never going to call anything unprecedented again. You stopped me in my tracks when I read that. And I want to go back and take that word out of everything I've ever said about this administration. Will you explain, though, why that is no good?
Unprecedented? Well, because that group of people would love to be unprecedented.
Yeah,
I mean, at
it's
every
a
turn,
compliment.
that's a next wave of horrors is unprecedented. So get used to it and drop the word. We shouldn't be surprised by it anymore.
Yeah, there's this piece of the Trump story that we as journalists still don't know how to tell. And it's this openness, I think, we have to new information when there are no new Trump stories. It's corruption, right? I mean, it's on us. But I wonder, being on the front lines with people fighting for justice and for freedom, what it feels like to watch the country do this again.
Well, I was thinking of writing, it was the worst of times and it was the worst of times. Couldn't have dreamed it up, Nicole. Nobody could have imagined it.
What is it about this moment that puts us at such odds with the people leading us in terms of how we view fellow humans?
I don't think anybody can figure that out, really, because it's so extreme. It is so extreme that there are two tracks, and for whatever it is, they can't cross over. And I'm guilty of that. I don't want to hear that rhetoric. I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to try and communicate with it. It's all very anti-Quaker. I was raised as a Quaker, and you really are supposed to be open and loving to everybody. And I'm having trouble with that right now.
I'm from Northern California. I went to UC Berkeley. And I am starting to feel like maybe I'll end up back there because I wonder how so many people voted for this. Do you think about that?
Well, I'm concerned about my position as a privileged, not quite white, but a privileged person, and the temptation to just get the hell out and go somewhere that's safer than this. And then I think probably it isn't right to do. I'd rather, for the moment, stay here and try to take care of my gardeners, because they wouldn't have the opportunity to go someplace else.
I think I used to worry that it was hyperbolic to ask questions about safety, but they seem to revel in people feeling unsafe. I mean, using that as a political tool is how that side has used the question of crime. And now it feels like threatening protest and dissent is one of their tactics. And I thought it was, you've been arrested twice in your life, but you've warned about protesting being more dangerous now. Talk about that.
Well, I went to jail twice, and it was all for aiding and abetting draft resistance. But, we had our lawyers, we had a call, we had the families come visit, we had our medication. And right now, since the first order of the day for this group is cruelty. It's cruelty. And don't just put people in cages. You love putting people in cages. And that's what makes it scary in a way that I was not scared back then. I mean, there've been a lot of places where I should have been scared and I was just maybe too stupid, you know, but now it's a different kind of scared. I I don't know what to say to people, but it's really honest to say that it's not I haven't experienced anything like this in my life.
You've been at the protests, you were at the No Kings protest. You've talked about what you will protest for and who you will protest with, and it always is nonviolence. Do you see this moment as worse than the 60s?
This is worse. I certainly see it as worse. Wish it weren't. I mean, I wish I could say, "Oh, yeah, we you know, we did our work back then, we had some results, it's the same or it's, um, l not as bad." But for me, if you really can't imagine, um, wouldn't have imagined this back then. If somebody made this, you know, this weird sci-fi movie, that this was happening, we couldn't have dreamed it up.
What do you think we're missing then in terms of a response? Because if this is worse, I mean, I went back and I watched your performances at the March on Washington in 1963.
We shall overcome someday. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday.
Your voice, I mean, I have always associated with everything I've ever seen, from that day, but everyone was singing with you, and it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like we're all singing together right now.
Well, you know, I have some theories about that. I don't know what happens when the stars align themselves in a certain way and we have a movement, that kind of a movement. There was anti-war movement, there was a civil rights movement, and you know, by the end they were merging. But that feeling of togetherness, I remember a kid was about 16 years old, some number of years after the war was over, and that, and he said, "You know, you guys had everything back then. You had the music, you had the war, you know, this thing, you had Woodstock, you had each other." He said, "You had the glue, and we don't have the glue." And I think that people were able to experience that when Obama was running for president.
Yeah.
When he was running and people were high-fiving each other in the subway, people I didn't know, it was just that was the feeling, and we
Mhm,
can do this together. I don't know how you create it.
mhm.
I don't know how much of it kinda just happens, but I think, you know, it will exist somewhere if we're around that long, and it's that vital glue, and then we feel as though something's possible, whether it is or not.
I mean, I think that's the anatomy of the resistance. It's feeling together and being each other's
Mhm,
glue because that's the
mhm,
strength. And then
mhm,
it's I mean, both those moments were around extraordinary leaders.
mhm.
And I wonder, I've seen some of your comments about the Democratic leaders right now. I mean, why there are so many talented ones individually. Why
Yeah.
do you think they've struggled to knit us together as the glue behind them?
Um, I don't know. All I can say that right now, we shouldn't be too surprised when people we thought were gonna speak up for us don't, because there's a lot of fear now. I
Mhm.
mean, we start self-censoring because of the clamping down on anything, on everything, on literature, on Anne Frank, you know, and especially if I'm taking jabs at all of them. Couple things that I say that I think make some sense. And one is we may not be able to turn the tide, but we can certainly save some fishes. The other thing I have said, and I think is true, is denial is your friend right now.
Mhm.
And I would suggest that we all live about 85% of the time in denial, because otherwise we'll, you know, get extremely depressed. So, and then with the other 10% or 15%, go and do something. And when you feel as though, well, I can't do anything, it's not enough, may not be enough for you, but it's
Yeah.
certainly enough for the little fish that you're advocating for or trying to take care of. Could mean everything to their life. So I wouldn't moan about it's just me. I can't, I'm the only one. It won't be good enough. Do it anyway. Just do it anyway. What calls you the strongest, whether it's, immigrants, Constitution, whatever. Just find the place and go be active with it.
One other thing you said that I've quoted a bunch of times, you quote the writer Ann Patchett, who I adore, saying that hope is a muscle. I think, is that right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
it's not just this thing that, oh, let me just call up my hope. It is a thing we have to, right? We have to strengthen. And
Yeah.
it sounds like all those things you described strengthen our hope muscles.
Yeah, because I've gone through most of my life being a complete pessimist. And people say, "Oh, Miss Wiles, how do you stay being such an optimist?" I don't want to say, no, my glasses have to empty all the time because I do this stuff anyway, That doesn't get me off the hook. I have to do what I do anyway. And it's up to me how grim I'm going to feel.
So someone said to me, how do you not, lose your, aren't you at your wit's end? And I said, yeah, I'm past that. I mean, I'm just here anyway, because we just, we do what we can do, with or without our wits.
Yeah. That's assuming we have any.
We had any to lose.
You're thinking big.
Do you, is it weird to see your life, sort of replayed to a new generation in film? I know I read in interviews that you saw it. I resisted watching it because I was such a fan that I felt disloyal watching the new people. And then after the election, I actually watched it and I said, oh, I'm so glad I watched it. I became obsessed with it. I watched it 3 times and I thought, oh, we have to follow the artists. The artists are going to lead us out. And I thought it was so important that a new generation, especially in the fall last year, could see it and maybe live it through the actors that played both of you.
Well, it certainly gave my visibility a big boost. I had called them and said, "Is there any? Do you want to talk to me?" I kind of was there. And so I talked with different people. I talked with Pete Seeger and I have great stories. I told him how Pete Seeger uses a banjo to protect himself. So all these fun things actually came out in the movie. You could see him holding I said his banjo is there. And you say, "Good morning, Pete." And he'd say, "I met a man in Guatemala." And he couldn't just say, "Good morning."
Is that just a creative quirk, or what was that?
I think he didn't know how to relate to a human being. And so that's how it came. Thank God we wouldn't have had that great music if he didn't have that quirk,
But what is it about art and artists that, is it that we cling to it so desperately at these moments, or is it that the art itself is inspired by desperate moments?
Well, let's see. It's certainly inspired by desperate moments. I think it's also inspired periodically by beauty. I think that music I used to think it was the only thing that crossed all barriers and borders. And then I was working with Mercedes Sosa, brilliant and powerful singer. And I was telling that, I said, the only thing that really crosses borders is music. She said, it's music and food.
Yes.
So I was... So,
do you have the same creative process as you write poetry that you did when you've written music? Does it all come from the same place?
I think it kind of shifts around in there because when I stopped writing songs, it's as though somebody said, "Okay," and they waved a little flag. Next, with painting, I painted for I think 12 years, and then 2 or 3 years ago, I just stopped. It doesn't mean I won't do it again,
Yeah.
But then there's all this other stuff, and then I think you have footage of it. I joined the circus. And I joined the circus for a number of reasons. One is I'd be able to dance which I wanted to do my whole career, but nobody understood that. So I stood in front of a microphone for 60 years. So now I'm busting at the seams and I get to dance in this circus. It's also for that denial that I need that denial. I'm not
Mhm.
be able to function. And also because the circus represents and is everything the administration hates. You know, we've got drag, we've got strip, we've got pole dancers, we've got me. And we've got joy, we've got dancing, we've got laughter. And so it is a real refuge for me. And it's interesting, the audience is like, oh, that everybody's waiting for that too. So I'm happy to be part of everybody's denial for a little bit here.
I think denial, though, one woman's denial is another's compartmentalization, right? It's the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it lets a lot of
Yeah.
people function. I think all sorts of people are compartmentalizing. I mean, I think that's my denial, that I want to believe that nobody wanted this. I want to believe the
Yeah.
polls that say that, and I know Trump voters in California, I'm from California, who say, and I'll ask them, are you worried about all of your friends who are here illegally or whose families or parents will be deported? And they have the denial explains a lot of the Trump voters that I know, at least, that, oh, he won't do those things. See, that's just talk. He won't
Right.
deport my friend. He won't deport my
Yeah.
friend because he's a hardworking American. He's
Yeah.
contributing. But the truth of what he's doing is really obliterates all of that denial. He's doing everything he said he would do and so much more.
Yeah. It was the worst of times, and it was the
It
worst of times.
was the worst of
Go
times,
join
and
a
it
circus.
was the worst of times. Go join a circus. I think that belongs on a T-shirt. I
Thank you. I like that. That's a
I
good
love it.
idea.
I'll make it. I'll send it to you. I want to ask about um, that experience of being in community with everyone that comes to watch the circus, right? Because that feels like the through line. They're the people that you weren't just performing to people. They were in community with you. And your songs are so iconic and famous and successful that I cannot find any footage where people aren't singing.
Ain't gonna let no hating bigotry turn me around. Keep on walking and keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, and no, turn me around, and no, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody.
What is that through line about? That you don't have fans that sit silently and idly to watch you. You sit in community with your fans. They are in that moment with you.
The circus is traditionally apolitical, apolitical. But I intend to say there's a quote from Mark Twain who says, the people have only one really effective weapon, and that is laughter. That's an amazing quote.
It's so perfect forever, but especially now. And I think I like
Yeah.
the things that are always right, but that I can grab onto. I cried watching all of the footage from 1963.
Oh, your
And I didn't just cry because I was so moved by you and everyone that was together. I cried because I'm so desperate for the glue. And I wonder if
Yes.
we're not going to see the
Yeah.
glue in our politics, maybe we'll find it in the comedy, but I think Trump's on to them too. I feel like they're in danger too. So what
Well,
does
they
that
are.
mean? Yeah.
It means I'm scared. I mean, I look at these lovely people in the circus and I think, oh God, I mean, they're Latinos, there's drag, there's all that stuff, and all of it. I think this engine that is rolling now is absolutely terrifying. I mean, I did Amnesty International and human rights work in Chile and Argentina and Brazil and Czechoslovakia, all the places that have been through military dictatorship. And that's what we're heading for. We're
Are,
all,
are you
like almost there.
are you scared for yourself?
Yes, yes. I'm more scared for my kid and granddaughter. And I ask people, what do you say to your kids and your grandchildren? They say nothing. because why take away that dream at the moment when she's just, effervescent with the possibilities in her life? And there isn't any point in me trying to argue that away. If it comes to that, she'll figure it out on her own.
I have 2 kids, and I keep thinking maybe they will eradicate measles a second time. Maybe they'll become doctors or health workers here. Maybe they will, I grew up when Americans went and taught other countries how to do democracy. Maybe
Yeah.
they will be the people that teach us how to do it here.
That's how I
Maybe,
feel about my granddaughter. Yeah.
right?
It's certainly, yeah. I mean, we can't really. We're doing everything we can, but the big walloping glue change is really going to come from another generation. I think. I think.
What is the need for a new anthem? Because I saw, and I know you have a new "One in a Million" is the new song, right?
Well, there are two. The other one is, I think you probably saw it of me at a demonstration. It's I Carried the Flame.
Help me out here. I carry the flame. I carry the flame. Let it always be said when you speak of my name. I carry the flame. Thank you.
I carry the flame. Let it always be said when you call out my name. I carried the flame. I mean, We Shall Overcome is the most beautiful protest song in my mind has ever written. And we need something new because
Why?
it's so easy. But because it's easy to write everybody off. They say, oh, yeah, they did that 50 years ago. That's done. It's too full of nostalgia and not enough to get people moving in my mind. Not everybody agrees with that.
I mean, I saw you compliment Bruce Springsteen for
Yeah.
using his platform for good.
Yeah.
He's about as big as it gets. Do you
Yeah.
think fear explains why people sort of underneath? And Dave Matthews is using his platform every time he speaks. There's a handful, but you can count it on one hand. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like the solidarity and the association that music had with the fight for rights and
Yeah.
peace and freedom.
And I mean, the Live Aid sort of structure,
Hmm.
I used to tease about it because they'd say the only risk about Live Aid was to not get asked. It was
To be
it
snubbed.
wasn't you're not exactly putting your life on the line there,
Yeah.
So that's always a question of how deeply somebody is involved. Like Pete Seeger was all the way,
Mhm.
he's 6'4" and it was already in it up over his head. And then others, a couple of them, I won't name names, but one of them, really good person, multimillionaire back then, and always would say, I really want to do something. I really want to do something. I want to take a risk this year. And he never did.
Why?
It's too scary. Too scared. Or
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I've never had that kind of money, but probably when you get in that echelon, you're afraid of losing any of it. I think.
Like, I wonder what's happening. And I'm an ex-Republican, and I don't understand why businesses don't think they have a skin in the game of remaining a democracy. There is no autocracy in the world where the economy is thriving. None. And so I think if I hadn't sort of arrived at where I've arrived as an ex-Republican, I might not even be curious about this, but I'm curious why everyone thinks someone else will save our country from becoming something other than a democracy.
Well, the first thing coming to my mind is one of Elon Musk's little puppet people on TV saying, we got to get over this dictator phobia. So that's one pocket, that's one pocket. And it's what's really evolving now. People are getting over their dictator phobia, or they didn't even know what it was. And they won't. I mean, if you're neutral during this time, you can get away with your life doing pretty much what you want to do. Just don't cross any lines.
But But what's the bet that you won't have a kid that tweets something that offends someone associated with the party in power, that you won't have an employee who has a relative who, I mean,
They're all different. I mean, they're all of the above that you just said, and the self-censorship. Don't let me get too grim because it's not
okay.
it's not
All right.
healthy for everybody,
It's
you
not
know?
good for anybody. So how do you beef up then the hope muscles? What do we need? What do we do? How do we juice up the other side of the equation where we think that something will glue us together, a leader will emerge, and we will be in this fight in time to save this country we love?
All I can say is how I stay afloat. Um, I have a friend, a Turkish friend, close friend. She's been living in a dictatorship forever now. And she had the only progressive newspaper that still existed as time went by. And I called her the other day. I said, "Help!" And I said, "Why are you not in jail?" She said, "Because I'm very clever." You know, I'm not that clever, but she has walked that line, and she's still, well, she gets very depressed, you know, because Turkey is this wonderful place, and
Beautiful.
it's been diminished one thing after another.
Mhm.
But it remains to be seen if I can be very clever.
I think it's a good bet that you can be very clever. What do you listen to? Do you still immerse yourself in music? Are there new artists that you're drawn to?
You know, it depends on what I want to do that day. This morning, I wanted to dance a little in the morning, and I put on Jimmy Cliff. Of course,
Nice.
he is so heartbreaking to me because it's so beautiful in a certain way. So I danced to that. And then, let's see, I had on Renee Fleming the other day
Beautiful.
because it's so beautiful, so beautiful. And I put her on periodically. I listened to the Gypsy Kings. Somebody said, "Oh, the old Gypsy Kings." I said, "Yeah, the old Gypsy Kings. They're the best of that music for me." I have a dance group online once a week, and we just do salsa.
I love
And
it.
yeah.
My daughter
So
likes this kids band called the Wiggles, and the best member is a former salsa dancer, and they just move. I mean,
yeah,
salsa is so sexy.
yeah, yeah, it is.
What is the answer for a society in the arts? I mean, what is the best argument for saving the arts if you want to save a society? To me, this is one of the distinctions this time that side is pursuing the arts, that they know that too, that they're
Yeah,
pursuing the Kennedy Center.
yeah,
What are the bright spots? I mean, a lot of artists said, no, I will not perform there for him as sort of, puppets for the state or artists for the state.
yeah.
Do you see some, like pulse and signs of life and things that give you hope inside the arts? I mean, because our artists are uncompromising. Most artists start out dirt poor, and if they
Yeah,
don't become famous, it is their art that sustains them.
yeah.
Many. Are you seeing some things that inspire you from other artists?
Aside from Bruce Springsteen, I think, I think I'm not waiting for somebody to be political.
Yeah,
I think I have to do receiving the beauty of the art, like
yeah.
Renee. It just for me right now, it has to be the beauty and the laughter and the joy, and the dancing. So, when I can support that or be that, then I do. I guess part of it is I don't wait for much because it may not happen.
And you said that these acts of joy are their own acts of defiance. So you talked about being at a drag show in Miami. Talk about that.
Yeah. This great drag queen breakfast in Miami. And I started dancing with one of them. She was huge. So I'm about the size of a peanut now. So I look really tiny, but I was doing this great dancing where then she kind of said, like, you go dance. So I went dancing along the thoroughfare, all these tables, people started stuffing dollar bills in my, in my belt. I thought, this is what it should be. Totally spontaneous and totally dirty, I had one friend, it was so horrified. She said, "Well, what's this going to mean to Jasmine, my granddaughter?" Well, Jasmine was the one who got me there. And then I talked to one of my clever past therapists. She said, "Oh, you let your inner slut out. Congratulations." Yeah.
I mean, that's what all that anyone wants to see is Joan Baez's inner slut.
I was happy watching it. Yeah.
What is it like to have so many people know of you, but I imagine you don't want everyone to know the real you. What is it like to have been to be famous for so long?
Well, what comes to my mind first is that there's been more of the real me dancing in the circus than a sense. Then there's a real me who does politics. There's a real me who does the art. There's a real me who sings. I There was another story. There's a German medium. Somebody says, you got to talk to this guy. So I met him and I gave him all the appropriate, whatever he needs to do his work. And he came to a concert, and after the concert, he brought this big chart out. So he's holding the chart and he says, and then I look into the chart to see more about you, but the energy hit me in the face. So I went in the sideways and I looked that way. And then he says, I know this, that you were put on the earth to sing, put on the earth to do activism, put on the earth there was another one. He said, but the real reason you were put on the earth is to dance.
Wow.
And I love that. That's when
Wow.
I'm happiest. Well, I think I really want to say, yoo-hoo, guys. I do this too, and I get a chance to do that. I'm 80 fucking 4 years old, but it's never too late.
I love that so much. I'm sitting here thinking, how do I bottle her up? Like, how do we bottle you up?
I don't know. Come to the
What is
circus.
what is your advice for living an open life, right? Where you're still open, you're still asking the medium, what does the chart say?
Well, I don't know how to live otherwise. No, that I've always, sometimes to a fault, been open. I wonder how much of that I was trying to get people to understand me, but I couldn't. I mean, for those first years, I was busy having stage fright and being political, and I couldn't enjoy myself on stage. Um, and then little by little, as years went by and I had the appropriate therapy, I got more and more able to enjoy myself, to share the music and not worry about saving the world.
What do you remember most about sort of the most famous moments of your life? I mean, do you remember what the weather was like and what it smelled like and what your day was like the day that you sang? I think it's August of 1963.
Um, yeah, it was very hot, and everybody said, "Oh, Marlon Brando's here, and he has a cattle prod." I mean, it's stuff that nobody's gonna know about. So, um, I think about the other times that people don't know about. Just before in Czechoslovakia, before the communists were overthrown, and I met one of the dissidents then who ended up being president, and that's moment to me where we were in a concert hall, national television was filming this whole thing. He was a dissident, wasn't supposed to be there. We'd gotten him up in the balcony so the police would have a hard time getting there. They turned the cameras off and they turned the sound off. So I was stuck there and I sang Swing Low, which is a cappella to him. And then within the next few months, the communists had fallen in a nonviolent revolution. And I was credited with being the last drop, in that chalice before the revolution. That to me is one of the highlights of my life that people don't know as much about because mostly they see me in Dr. King, which was wonderful being with him.
So, did you know in the moment that you're singing that you could be what you've become to history, to that country's history?
You mean like Czechoslovakia
Mhm.
and August?
Mhm.
Um, I think I was pretty young, really, comparatively speaking. And I think you can kind of tell when something is going to be historic,
Mhm.
like that march that day, or flying over Woodstock and looking down, thinking, "Oh my God, it's not an anthill; those are people." Things like that, you know. But one's own importance is hard to judge and better not to think about. Just do what you do to the best of your ability. and try, as a star, try to avoid the pitfalls of that. Try to, when somebody comes and talks to you, realize how important it is for them to tell their story. Although I had a great T-shirt somebody gave me saying, "Please don't tell me your story."
Oh,
It
that's
was great. I
amazing.
said, "Oh man, that's great." And he proceeded to tell me a story about how he got the T-shirt.
When you're asked, though, to come and lift up a protest now, like No Kings,
Mhm.
or May Day or others, is that a burden, or do you feel like there's something you can pass along to help the activist movements today? Like, how do you carry that when people so desperately want you to be part of this movement now?
Well, sometimes I just show up
Yeah.
because I know that that is heartening to them. I
Mhm.
mean, I hear it when they're passing each person, it seems, above a certain age, that it has meant something to them.
Yeah.
And for that, I'll just be there. And we had a wonderful one that went 17 miles along, um, not the a highway, but close to a highway. And it's magnificent when that's there and that's happening. And it's part of what needs to happen.
I mean, to your point of showing up and not knowing what the drop will be, I'm
Yeah,
not someone who thinks that none of it matters in this moment. I feel like it all matters. Everything matters
I
because
agree with
you
you.
don't
I
know.
absolutely, yeah, I totally agree with that, that it all matters. I'm not there visually the way I have been in the past.
Mhm.
No, I'm at the circus, maybe one of the marches going on, I'll take the circus. But yeah, when I come home, 'cause I'm pretty cranked up after 2 nights of performances,
Mhm.
um, then there's this time, and I look at my roses, and I force myself above, to Rose's level and do the things around the house to keep me there. And I'm learning how to do nothing, which I worked on for over 80 years. It's hard for me because I'm on output all the time.
I can't picture it. What does doing nothing look like?
Well, let's see. A couple of days ago, I sat on a couch and I read some Atlantic.
Good. I
and
love them.
and I Yeah, and I didn't go in the art studio, and I didn't start writing poetry. Those were the big ones, because those are where I go immediately. So, yeah, and I have a pool. More important, I have a creek, and it's just my life down there. It's barely walkable. I'm gonna get fucking ski poles, which I hate, 'cause they look like some ancient bird washer. But so I'm going down the creek with these things, slipping and sliding on the rocks, but the creek, it totally revives me. It's like a little baptism every time I go, and I incense. I light so much incense they can smell it miles down the creek. Um, just trying to, revive. And there are a couple of places still where they're high enough and it's coming strongly enough that I can just do a little breaststroke. And yeah, it's important.
Do you feel like you're in the "I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me" years of your life?
Yeah, that's the luxury of this,
Yeah.
being my age, and I don't care.
I just watched the, documentary about the Ed Sullivan Show on Netflix,
Right,
and
yeah.
I, of course, knew who Ed Sullivan was, but I didn't know about how personally involved he was in bringing all the acts that he saw and loved in
Mhm.
Harlem to, the airwaves of CBS and fighting for them if anyone tried to censor them or boycott him. And I wonder, I think a lot about the privilege and the responsibility of having a platform, albeit,
Mhm.
just in news, right? I mean, what is the importance of taking risks if you can and if you believe?
And all my whatever career, I've said that social change cannot happen until somebody's willing to take a risk, and I believe that, and I believe it's gonna get scarier and scarier to take a risk. So those are things I have to figure out about risk, because 'cause I've always been willing to take it. Does my taking a risk, does it affect my son, my granddaughter?
Yeah.
and so on. I would love to say, damn it, damn the torpedoes, I'll do whatever I want to do. And it's very stifling to me to not be able to just say that, because that's where my heart is, you know.
Are you optimistic in this moment that enough people will at least stand together and find community and be glue for each other for whatever comes to pass?
I think I think that gluing and finding each other is really, really important. And I also adhere to that. We may not be able to turn the tide, but we can save some fishes, to get involved in those organizations and groups that are busy saving fishes. Whatever the group is, back it up. I'm not going to say, I mean, back in the day, I would say to students, college students, yeah, quit, go get involved in real life, and think it was right to say back then. And now it's a little scary.
But we can save the fish.
They can save the fish. Bunch of them.
Joan Baez, it's a privilege and an honor to get to talk to you. Thank you so much.
It's my privilege. Thanks, Nicole.
I'm going to come see you in the circus.